This is where we left in the previous video by configuring our server to render these templates. In this video, let's focus on the logging in logic. One more time, we are not going to incorporate database into it, but instead we are going to use these dummy users over here. So it means that we are not going to implement user registration because this process is going to be easy when you know how to use MongoDB and Mongoose, of which we have already covered. So let's see the authentication flow, how to log in and log out and how to protect some endpoint. And we're going to have one project whereby we are going to use database. So let's move step by step. You can remove this line of code, and that is how we are setting the template engine of Vue. It's going to be saved automatically because we are using this one over here as app.set. And if I save it and if I try to refresh the page, I'm going to see the same. Now, let's see the login in process. We have this route. This route is for rendering the login page as we see over here. And we have this to implement the actual login, which means that we are going to call this endpoint when we click on login. Now let's check inside the template of login, which is this. Over here, take note about the form. On the form, we have some attribute, the action, which is equal to /. The value for the action points to the endpoint inside our server. And the method is post because we want to make some requests into the server. Now, inside the input, take note about this, the name attribute. We are going to have access to the value of this input on a property called name inside our route. Likewise, the password, which is this. So we are going to access this inside our route as rec.body. Let's get into the actual logic. So over here, we are going to find these users. So I will say, let me have some roadmaps over here. The first one is find the user login details. And after that, we are going to create some cookies. Let me use something like cookie data. And in case the cookie is valid, then we are going to render the user dashboard. Else, we are going to redirect the user to login page. Now let's implement these steps one by one. Let's begin with the finding the user. So here we are going to make use of const, I will say user found is equal to the users array dot find. And find is going to return the actual data in case it's going to match our criteria. So pass in callback function here, and we have access to the individual user inside the callback function as user. So here we are going to return if user.username, if it is equal to rec.body.username. Before we continue, let me show you how we are going to access the value from the form on rec.body. So over here, let me go ahead and log the rec.body. Now let's get back to the browser and let me go to the home page and get started. And when I click on login, because I have these values being entered for me automatically, and if I check the terminal, as you can see, we have these values. So we are going to take these values and find it inside our database as you see over here. Now we know that we can have access to the value on rec.body. And for this, we are checking for the username. And if the user.password is also equal to the rec.body.password. So for this, we can destructure the rec.body. So here I can make use of const username and then the password, which is equal to rec.body. Now I can remove these guys. All right, and use the username and password. Now, in case we have the user, we are going to get the user back from this. So let me go ahead and log the user found. Now with this one, let's try again, and now we got the user. So it means that the user is being found, which means that the user is logged in. So after the user is logged in, we are going to generate some cookies and assign to the user. For the meantime, let's leave this one, and then we are going to render the dashboard of the user. So over here, we are going to say that if user found, meaning that if the login was successful, then inside here, we are going to redirect by using res.redirect and pass in the endpoint, which is dashboard. Take note about this. The value you pass into the redirect will point to an endpoint or route. In this case, it's going to point to the route here. So it means that it's going to render the dashboard template. So now let's go ahead and try again. If I click on get started and log in, as you can see, we have some beautiful error, which means that username is not defined. So let's go ahead and modify the template because we are passing in this value. For the meantime, let's cut it from here and let's make sure that our logic is well implemented. As you can see, it has been redirected us into the dashboard. And for this, if I log out, it says that cannot get log out. And we are going to work on this. The takeaway here is that how the login works. The user is logged in, but our server does not remember this particular user, and that is John. If I log in with Sarah, now let's see the flow one more time. Let me get back to the login and pass in Sarah, and the password is 456, and I have been logged in. Now we are done with the first step. The second step is the server is going to create some identifier and assign to this user. This is where cookie comes in. And for cookies, we are not going to install any package to get it done. Express has it default, so we are going to use it. So now let me change this one back to the Node.js syntax here. In the next video, we are going to configure our application to use cookies. Let's get into it in the next video.